Hey, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for waiting a couple extra minutes for our lovely live stream to kick in. We thank you for waiting, and good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you. My name is Angela Young, and I am the co-founder of Art Hive Magazine, and I'm very excited to welcome everybody to the Business Skills for the Modern Creator presented by Broward Cultural Division. And today's first session, just so you understand, is a adaptation of the Cultural Division's Artist as an Entrepreneur Institute. And so every other Saturday, we will be bringing you 2 presentations on how artists and creatives like you can launch and grow your career. So I want to give you, before we start, an idea of what to expect during the sessions during the summer. So here's some things that will be covered. Creating a business plan, developing a brand, protecting your rights, building a marketing plan, consumer platforms for selling your work, and civic and community engagement. And just so you know that at the end of the summer, we're going to wrap up and revisit your business plans to make sure that you have everything that you need to thrive as a creative entrepreneur. So I want to let you know that we are live streaming off of 2 services. We are on YouTube and we are also on Facebook. We will be moderating most of the comments via YouTube. So if you do want to have some of your answers or questions answered, please make sure to go over to the YouTube, and that way we can present that to the speakers. And we're also going to be doing a Q&A as well for each of the speakers. So if you have questions while you're listening, we'd be happy to answer them later on. We also, just so you know, will have links available shortly. There are some paperwork that the presenters have and they would like to share with you. So we'll make sure to attach those so you guys have them at a later time. So now I would first like to introduce you the Cultural Division's Director, Philip Dunlap. He is an artist himself and he is here to officially welcome you to today.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is quite the monumental day for us as we take our storied program, Artist and Entrepreneur, online in our new program called Business Skills for the Modern Creator. And I have to give big props to my team over at the Cultural Division and our friends at Art Hive Magazine for helping us navigate this digital space. These are very important classes, and we're happy to be able to bring these to you online as a product of formal music education. I went to music school. I'm a jazz pianist. I can attest to the fact that music school is great at teaching the craft of what we do as artists, but they're not so great at addressing the business aspect of the work. And artists, regardless of the discipline, and even regardless of if you went to or received formal training at a university or college or in another type of program, the business skills that you need and the entrepreneurial acumen that you need to develop as an individual artist are very important things that we need to learn: contracts, business plans. Some of you may go and start nonprofit organizations. Some of you may continue your work as an individual artist. So knowing how to navigate those aspects of the business part, that once you develop those skills, can allow you to focus on the art and not be as distracted by the business piece. So we're extremely happy to be able to offer these courses for you free and every other Saturday. So sit back, relax. Don't forget to engage with us online in the comment section so that we can address your comments and enjoy yourselves. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our Art Hive friends. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. That was a really nice introduction. We appreciate you taking time to be here with us this morning. So for those of you that did pre-register, you will notice in your email that there is some materials that have been provided to you. And if you did not pre-register, don't worry. That's okay. We're going to provide those materials to you a little bit later on, so you can access that. So if you did have a pre-register, take out those materials now, because as the speakers go through their presentations, they'll be mentioning some of that stuff. And also I want to make sure to mention that, don't worry, we're not going 3 hours straight. We will have a break after our first speaker so that you can refresh your coffee and come back for the second part. So first up, we have our first speaker, and we are going to be talking about understanding your business, which is led by George Gadson. So a little bit about George before we get started with his presentation. Mr. Gadson is a graduate of Duke University, and he's also a self-taught artist who has been commissioned for many high-profile projects that includes the works of the White House and for the Super Bowl. And today, Mr. Gadson is going to share some tools and resources for you to be a sustainable creative in your practice. So George, we're going to let you take it away.
Good morning, Angela. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much. I wanted to take this time to thank the Broward Cultural Division for actually allowing me to be a part of this, and also, of course, Art Hive and the wonderful things that they're doing. So as I speak with you today, I want to just kind of have you to give a thought to your business and how what I share with you today, you can really adapt it to your business. We're going to talk about three things. One, having you look at your products as an artist, the services that you can provide or that you currently are providing, and then also how do you prioritizing what comes first, what comes second, what comes third, and then of course time management. I'm a former banker. I don't have a degree formally in art, and I do know that my success as a banker had a lot to do with basically implementing what I'm sharing with you today, but also at the same time as an artist. So that being said, we're going to move forward to our next slide and actually talk to you about your self-evaluation in terms of you as an entrepreneur or a potential entrepreneur. Now, the word actually entrepreneur, or those individuals, be you an artist or not an artist, people who are entrepreneurs, bottom line, are risk takers. They are not the individuals who are comfortable with just sort of being behind a desk and wanting to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. They're willing to kind of step out of the boat and actually take that risk. And today, the fact that you're here watching us live and gaining in some knowledge about tools that you can use tells us that you too have what potentially could be that spirit of an entrepreneur. Now, there's a number of different quizzes, if you will, you can take, or assessments called entrepreneur quote that gives you your entrepreneur quotients. Those particular tools can actually provide you with kind of what I think you already know, and that is, do you have what it takes really to be a business owner? Are you willing and are you comfortable with actually taking that risk? So I encourage you, if you will, to go online. You can Google Entrepreneur Quotient. You'll find a number of them. The one that you see on the screen here is one actually that I obtained from actually Northwestern Mutual Life that actually gives you scoring opportunities. It's not fast and true. Don't stress out if you don't quote unquote get the passing score. Um, but at the same time, just take note of the results and weigh that against where you're looking to go if you're not already in business, but where you're wanting to go as it relates to growing your business. So let's talk right now, and I'd love to hear from you in the chat box, having you really take a look closely, just quickly jot down three things or three products or services that you currently provide. And let us hear from you as we're talking. Actually, I had an opportunity to take a look at those of you who have enrolled in the course today, today's session, and I see there's a number of different disciplines from drama to dance, textile artists, sculptors, um, filmmakers, documentary film producers, uh, writers, etc. So there's a variety of you that are a part of the session. And so it would love to hear from you in terms of what you consider some of your products or services. And as I share with you in just a few moments, some of the things that I have done with my business in terms of my products or services, I want you to challenge you to think outside of the box. If most of you right now are in the studio and creating studio art, I want to challenge you to think in terms of how you can take what you're doing in the studio and bring it out into the public. And what I mean by that is in terms of how do you integrate it into other disciplines so that the public can have an experience with it, not just those who purchase the work, but those who will forever lasting see the work in public spaces. Next slide, please. So here are some examples. What you're seeing here is actually a piece of work that I did for the International Swimming Hall of Fame, which is presently in their museum and permanently in their museum. But I'm going to talk about public art and design services that I do, as well as special customized recognition awards. And the bottom right photograph that you see there is an actual sculpture that is at the International Swimming Hall of Fame, and individuals who are recognized on a yearly basis, their name actually is as part of a pedestal connected with that particular sculpture. Next slide, please. Here's a public art piece. A nonprofit organization in Broward County reached out to me and asked if I would create this particular work of art. This, folks, was the first time that I've done something of this style. A friend of mine said, George, if I were not at the ribbon cutting, I would never have known that this was your work. So I don't like to be confined to, one style, and so that I can be adaptive in a number of different environments with my art, with my product or my service. Next slide, please. Here's a school board building downtown here in Broward County. Dr. Kathleen Wright. This particular piece was actually used to commemorate the first female African American who was ever elected to the Broward County School Board. So this particular sculpture ultimately has some historical significance. Next slide, please. The Sankofa bird, the Sankofa monument tells a story of 5 different pillars in the African American community, and the Sankofa, a symbol that represents looking back in the past. So using this as a means to tell history on a permanent basis is how this sculpture and monument was initially and permanently erected. Next slide, please. Just taking a city or municipality's logo. And this could actually vary. It doesn't have to be municipalities. It can actually be a company. So there, I noticed on the enrollment list, the registration list, there were some designers, graphic designers, taking a company's logo or taking a logo of any size or any design, and how can you take that now from the studio as a two-dimensional work and actually make it into something three-dimensional? This is actually a combination of bronze, etc. Here's a design creatively done by an artist in a service that I provided as a consultant to the city of Lauderhill. His design was used to create a terrazzo floor in the lobby of the city hall. Next slide, please. City of Tamarack. Roger Stoller and Albert Paley, two world-renowned artists, were contracted actually to create public art. Taking my services and my knowledge as an artist and knowing different materials, different process, etc., leading a public art committee through the selection process and coming up with the best artists. Some of you online here are artists whose work can be used in a public setting, photography, even writing, even drama, dance, textile. I think there was a sculptor here that's actually on this live streaming. So taking your work and what you do and your product, art, and service, and taking it and transporting it, if you will, into an environment that gives you another way in which to create revenue. Now, I've said this when I do this particular workshop with the Artists Entrepreneur Institute. At the end of the day, I don't care if I'm a famous artist. What I care about is that I'm happy on the way to the bank, using all my skill sets, knowing what my products are, my services, and bringing it to the forefront so that I can make money. That's the banker in me. Next slide, please. Creating custom design awards. The far right is the sculpture I did for the Super Bowl in '95 and '99 here in South Florida. Again, those of you who are in the areas of sculpture or even non-sculpture, you can take a two-dimensional work, find the proper company that actually can translate it into something that's three-dimensional, and doing a custom design recognition award program. Next slide, please. Here is a recognition award that I received as my nonprofit from the Jim Moran Foundation for my community outreach with my art. Next slide. Using your skills also and your services or your expertise in facilitating group discussions. Here, individuals are taking found objects, things that we might consider, some people might consider junk, but actually putting them together and building their own piece of artwork and using that time afterwards to debrief in terms of how they work together as a team, who decided on what roles and responsibilities would be taking, who would do what. So again, artistically bringing to the forefront, bringing into an environment, a corporate environment, a way in which people can develop relationships and build a team. Next slide. Another example, just focusing on public and private companies, individuals, one large development company here in South Florida, Carlisle Development and Jam Family Enterprises. Next slide, please. Here, I'm very much committed to community outreach, doing art in communities that otherwise may never experience art. Even taking what you do as an artist, if it's writing, if it's dance, etc., how can you take that particular service, do a community outreach, and by the way, get paid for it, take it to a community that otherwise may not be able to do so. Here's a gentleman at a nursing home. Folks, those individuals in the nursing home still have fire in them, have life in them as well. And this gentleman is actually creating a sculpture with marshmallows and spaghetti sticks. Next slide. And here's a restaurant owner whose wall, I'm in the process of actually creating a mural on that wall. The area where they're located is being redeveloped in a major way, and that whole corridor will unfortunately be gentrified because of the great development that's taking place, but that's all part of progress. And this will enhance her property. Of course, there will be a great economic benefit to her because I believe that even a greater number of people will come and visit her restaurant. Next slide. So I have this question for you. What are your challenges as you're listening to this? What do you feel your strengths are? What are your deficiencies? And we all have deficiencies. And it's important to address those deficiencies and then look for ways in which you can mitigate them or you can basically change what was a weakness into a strength. Do you have family members or friends who are your supporters? And I will say this, if you're hanging around people who are not actually giving you positive feedback and pushing you towards your dream, then it's time to put them on your do not contact list, or limit your um, conversations with them. How much time do you devote to creating work? There's not a day go by, folks, that I do not do some type of art. TV is a waste of time. My time is better spent creating art, strategizing about how to grow my business. How much time do you devote to marketing and promoting your work? Where does networking in the community fit in with what you do? I believe firmly that people do business with people they know. So as you're out there in the community networking strategically where you're networking with the right audience, that's what this is all about. And then the last question is, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? Just some self-reflective questions. Next slide. So we'd like to hear from you in the chat room. If I ask you, what would you consider to be, you define as success? What would that be? What is success? What does it mean to you? Let us hear from you. Some folks believe success is being able to do my art full time. I could stay at home, be a stay at home mom, or be a stay at home dad. And as a result of that, I can do what I need to do for my kids. That's to them is a part of their definition of success. Someone else's success might very well be how much money they have in the bank, are they able to pay their bills now, they, etc. That could be theirs. Another definition of success could be, I finally have my book written, or I finally have my website up. So the success is defined by you and not by anyone else. Now, I'd like to say this, so this is very important. The moment we begin to compare ourselves to other people, it's the moment then we begin, if we're not cautious or careful, to doubt ourselves and to doubt our capabilities and our accomplishments. So the key thing is to challenge yourself in terms of what you feel is success based upon what you know your potential is. I heard something just the other day. Potential is not what you did in the past, because that's gone. Potential is what's inside of you that's yet still to be fulfilled. So your definition of success should be prompted and motivated by what you know is inside of you that's still there and waiting to come out. Next slide. So to get to that area of success, it's important that we all have goals. And if you just remember the word SMART, SMART goals are those that are specific, what you're going to do, why you're going to do it, and how you're going to do it. The measurable, it is something that you can track your progress against. Attainable, you set the bar high enough so that it's achievable, but not so high that you won't commit to doing it. It's realistic, something that you have the skills and ability to do, and it may push you a little bit. And then, of course, time bound. I love to use when we would do this workshop face to face with participants. I'd always put the example out there that at the end of this year, December 31st, I'm going to enter the Mr. Universe contest. Now, the audience typically laugh and we have fun talking about that. But I was specific in terms of when I would do that. The measurements were, as it is now, my waist size is this, but by the time December rolls around, I'm going to have a much smaller waist, but my biceps are going to be at least 5 or 6 inches larger than what they are now. Now, the attainable part was a little bit dubious because it's not realistic. And I know me, I know that it won't commit to doing it. So hence I won't focus on doing that. And of course, time bound, I mentioned December, the end of the year. Years ago, I self-published a book. And my goal was to get that book published. And I actually set my birth date as a time in which it would be done. So as you're defining a goal, just think in terms of SMART and how you can measure it. If we can go to the next slide, I'll just give you an example. So for example, you are wanting to redesign your website. That is the result that you want to achieve. And then, of course, the time certain would be when you're going to have it done by, in this case, say September 15th, 2020. And then, so how do you know that you've accomplished that? Well, obviously, the website is live. Another example, if you say need to develop a marketing plan, the same likewise. So this is just an example of how you can use a SMART goal uh, process or technique to arrive at setting your goals. Next slide. Now we know that goals also, as life, sometimes is met with oppositions. So here's a force field analysis, which has been used in a number of different ways for planning and setting goals. And on the left-hand side of this chart here, you see the driving forces. What's driving you to develop a marketing and branding campaign? Well, you realize, okay, I have no brand. Nobody knows who I am, or my name is not out there, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a driving force. Sales are slow. I need to generate revenue. So on the other side, the opposing forces, there will be, and there could potentially be financial resources are not available right now, or maybe you don't have staff. It's just you that's doing it. So here's an example of how you can use the force field analysis to help you and actually planning setting your goals. Next slide. Here are the opposing forces. We talked about the limited resources, no staff. On the far right is an example of, okay, what are some of the solutions? Maybe research some grants, find some grant opportunities, or in order to say take care of the issue as it relates to the marketing side. Maybe finding a student intern at one of the universities as part of their coursework, using them to help you develop the marketing branding strategy. And then the next section allows you to fill in, more information in terms of what those specific strategies would be for each of these solutions. What resources are available that you can actually use to make all of this happen, a check-in point in terms of milestones along the way, and then of course a time certain, the date when you are looking to have this goal completed. Next, please. Time management. My. This, folks, is so critical. You know why I say it's critical? It's because that thing called procrastination can creep in, and before you know it, you're not getting anything accomplished. I love to use the phrase time is an equal opportunity employer. The reason why is because, look, folks, we wake up in the morning, we all have 24 hours in a day. None of us, I challenge anyone to dispute this, none of us have 26, none of us have 28. We all have 24 hours in a day. And it's up to us to determine how we're going to manage that time, how we're going to manage that 24 hours that we have. So that being said, next slide, please. There are tools. This tool here is an evaluation or assessment tool that allows you to, in the quiet of your home or in a park or wherever, listening to some nice music, you can actually sit down and look at each day of the week, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm an early riser. I'm usually up by 5:36, and I know exactly what I do with my time then. So if you do that for a week or two and really keep track of how am I spending my time, this then tool allows you to come back later and do an assessment and determine where are my time wasters? How much time am I actually spending on my business? Or how much time am I spending watching TV or hanging out with friends who are interrupting me from getting things done that has to do with my goals? Next slide. I am a to-do list person because it helps me realize success. So if you don't have a to-do list, and I'm willing to bet most of you do, this is the best way to get things accomplished. And if you, as you see here, I actually have a section for A, B, C. Those things on the to-do list, or the listed A, are the first things that I focus on. The second, of course, B and C would be the ones that are least important. And if the ones that are C don't get done, that's fine. Now, some of these don't all get done in the same day. Now, it's important to know too that you may have a to-do list, but simply putting it on the to-do list without putting a time when you're going to do it, and that's what's over on the right-hand corner. So by doing this, this to-do list and having a time certain, you're more likely to be more efficient in terms of how you're going to work your business. Remember to carry out the necessary tasks first, and this to-do list allows you to do that. You tackle the most important jobs first, and you do not waste time on the trivial time. And if your friends call you and you want you to come over, or they want you to come over there, you can look at your to-do list and see, okay, what do I have to do? And you can, of course, make some time for them if need be. And you do not have to stress on large jobs, that are coming up, and particularly on those that are really unimportant. Next one, please. So I'd like to just leave this with you. These are some books that you might want to avail yourself to. One has to do with artist grants, and I referenced that earlier in terms of a possible solution for doing what you need to do. There's a book that I've had in my library called The Legal Guide for Visual Artists. Some may not be able to afford an attorney. I have used this particular book by Ted Crawford, an attorney. You can actually Google online and find this. And I've actually used this with large corporations when they've commissioned me to do artwork. It's very good. The Dig Your Wells Before You're Thirsty. I reference networking, using that as a tool to really market your business and grow your business. The premise of this book is by Harvey Mackay, the guy who wrote Swim with the Sharks. When you have dug your well deep with relationships, people do business with people they know. The deeper your well is with relationships, when it comes time to go after a project or to solicit business, etc., guess where you go? You go to your well. You go to your well. Guerrilla marketing. Many years ago, I had a mortgage brokerage business for about 4 or 5 years. It was just me. The concept of Rambo being the only person fighting against his enemies is what I incorporated in my business. And it was because of this gentleman, J. Conrad Levinson, guerrilla marketing tactics, where the public thought that I was much bigger than I really was. But it was just me by using those guerrilla tactics to grow my business. And for those of you who are I've seen registered here, cafe, callforentry.org, a number of opportunities there for public art, for art exhibitions, etc. You would upload your work, and it's not just for sculptures and public art, but there are also publications and companies that subscribe to this that actually put their call to artists for exhibitions throughout the country, and some of them in other countries as well. And then, of course, the complete guide to 2020 artist grants and opportunities. This is in an archive.com, I believe, is where you can access this. It has a number of different resources for grants and grants opportunities. Next slide, please. So as a recap, think in terms of your business. Okay, you're assessing and understanding your business, understanding what your products are, understanding how you can take what you do in the studio and translate it into a product or service that actually can then be enjoyed by the public. Public art being a good example for photographers, for writers, for dancers, even just thinking outside the box. At the same time, priorities, knowing where you want to go. If you don't know where you want to go, you never know you got there. So knowing where you want to go, having a goal, setting particular specific things, specific strategies with timelines, time certain, so that when you arrive, you know what it looks like and you know when you got there. And then, of course, time management. Without using time wisely, you will continually be procrastinating. You'll allow some time wasters, individuals, and even tasks that we are guilty of doing that will keep you from effectively using your time. There's more that could be said here. The next presenters will provide you with even greater information. And I want to take this time to say thank you for allowing me just to share some of the things that I found has been helpful for me. And I trust and pray that you will find them helpful for you as well. Let's be creative.
Hi, George.
Hi.
If you don't mind moving slightly over I've now replaced the screen. Oh, yes, we want to see you there.
Okay, all right.
Thank you so much for all of that information. What I want to do first is talk about what people have been sharing with us through the comments.
Sure.
I want to let you know first, some people mentioned who they were. So we have on board, and I'm sure more people are here, but we have visual artists, mixed media artists, fine art photographers. We have product designers and illustrators. So a nice array of people that are watching. I want to first tell you what people were saying about your answer about defining success, because I think people had some really great answers. So Phil said that success can be a balance of being able to do the art that makes you happy versus what you have to do to make a living.
Great. Yep.
Sarah says that success is financial independence, a recognizable brand, and to be known as someone who's using art to make a positive impact on the environment. I like that.
Awesome. I like that.
Kim said that success for me as an artist is to stay active with my practice and that I continue to collaborate with others. For me, it's about interactions.
Awesome. Awesome.
Eduardo said that success for me as an artist is to stay active with my practice and that I continue to collaborate with others. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading Kim's again. Sorry, Eduardo, you did not say that. Eduardo said, success is making a difference in the world through sharing my creative gifts with my community and making a living from my work and supporting my family.
Great. Great. These are all great answers. As you saying this, I'm thinking we have the best job in the world because we can work and do whatever we want to do with what our skills and talents are until it's time for us to leave this planet. We don't have to retire. That's not in my DNA. So all of you, what you're saying is excellent, and you are focused and moving towards that word of success because it's internalized. I feel it. You're committed to it, and you will get it done.
Absolutely. So I have a couple of questions for you that came through. So someone had mentioned, how can someone be prepared right now for success? Because you were mentioning what is success, especially with what's going on in the world today. I think artists, and everyone included, are all thinking, what do I do now? So what's your interpretation of that answer?
Well, and I'll reflect because recently I was introduced to a book off of Oprah, and the time is now. And this particular author was really rattling the cages as an activist in terms of what we can do as it relates to what's going on in our country. So I said, I got to get this book because somehow what is being stated is actually could be helpful for me. So where it begins, to answer your question, is a shift in how we think.
Okay.
A shift in how we think, first of all, believing and knowing that we do have something to offer the world. I've found sometimes artists are saying, oh, I'm just an artist. Oh, no, we don't accept that. You have a gift. So it starts first with that. And then secondly, really identifying, doing an assessment and an evaluation. Okay, what is my gift? And then where does my gift best fit? And then once you know where the mindset is, I've shifted my mind in terms of how I'm thinking. I know what I have to offer. I now just need to do the due diligence. And it's not something that this is not not a sprint as an artist. Okay, this is a marathon. We continue every day. So the mental aspect, continually saying, okay, this is where I'm at, how I think. This is what I know I have to offer, how I can change my environment, how I can change my world, and always be open to fine tuning that and knowing your purpose. Once you know your purpose, continually focus on your purpose and make it happen.
That's wonderful. I just had Paula come in with a good question. She actually mentioned that she's new to art. And so after a
Welcome.
long career, how do you begin to define your goals and success? And I'm assuming I'm just now going to speak for her, but, probably coming from another career where there's very definable goals, right? I used to be a teacher, so it was very clear. You have your lesson plan, you have the children do the tests, and now you define what success is by these test scores. That's very easy, but in art, it's so different. So how would you answer Paula's question?
Well, I would first start by saying, okay, doing the assessment. What do I have to offer? What am I doing? What's my discipline? And then from there, saying, okay, now in the AEI, the Artist Entrepreneur Live classroom setting, I actually have all the participants stand and do something like this. And I tell them, okay, that will represent a change in paradigm and a change in how you think, shift in your thinking. Now you are a business person. As a business person, you think, what do I have to offer and how do I monetize it? It's now you're going to learn from other presenters throughout this whole session specifics, your products, how do you price it, how do you market it, etc. But the fundamental thing, you just starting out, okay, how do you package yourself? It's important that even at the out of the gate, people know who you are. Even something as small as a business card. Your business card is your billboard. Then, of course, your website. Having a website, begin to build those small little things there over time. And then as you market and getting out there, giving your card out, people invariably will go to your site. But setting for yourself small, short-term goals to say within the next 6 months, this is what I want to have in place. I want to have my collateral material, my brochure, my business cards, a bio, even if it's just 4 sentences. Some folks say, well, I don't have a big art history. That's fine. As long as you've got something, an artist statement. So those are the small things that you could start with. And then over time, you'll come back to AEI and you'll learn other things that you need to do. I hope that was helpful.
I think what you said is very important too about doing small attainable goals. I think we also get caught up. We're in a social media world, so it's easy to see one artist share one moment and say, man, why can't I have that? But and I don't know what you think about George about this, but also just comparing our own successes to our own successes, each of our paths, we cannot compare to one another. So I think that's something that's for an artist especially is very, very important.
And I referenced that earlier, and I said that the moment that we begin to compare ourselves with others, now I'm not saying don't admire where other folks are and what they're doing, but at the end of the day, compare yourself with what you want to accomplish. And when you accomplish those things, then there's a sense of satisfaction. Okay, this is what I want to accomplish because I know I have it inside of me. Okay, we all have it in us, folks. So we can focus on this is what I want to accomplish. And once you've done that, then set another goal, and then set another goal, and set another goal. At the end of the day, this is my favorite phrase. Do what you love, the money will come. Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life.
So, so true. I want to know, George, you mentioned that you were also a banker. How do you think that helped navigate you as an artist? And so maybe the people out there that might feel, man, I haven't been an artist since I was a child. That doesn't matter. Having other experiences in the world also will translate. So how did being a banker help translate for you?
Being a banker helped me understand a number of different things in terms of how to bring it into my art. First of all, professionalism. Professionalism is one of the key ingredients. We as artists have to dispel the myth that we're just kind of like loosey goosey and all of that. But truly focus on how do I show that I'm professional? Show up for my appointments on time. Have an agenda in my head in terms of what it is I want to talk to the clients about. The International Swimming Hall of Fame, the president reached out to me and said, would you contact me? I didn't wait 2 weeks to contact him. I called him the next day. It's those types of things as a banker that allowed me to really bring it into my business. And I actually was very successful in my loan closings because I had on the outside of my folder a checklist. So
Mm.
I knew what was inside the folder. So here's how does that translate to projects that we work on as artists or my to-do list, my checklist, and I had to prioritize. So those are some of the things that I brought from my banking business. And at the end of the day, folks, also money. Money is not my God. We need finances to live, but to stay in business, you have to make money. So you don't accept any project saying, "Oh, well, I'm just going to do it because." No, don't get me wrong. I believe in giving back and doing those things, sometimes at a reduced cost or no cost at all. But every product or service that you provide, you don't want to just break even. You want to make a profit so that you can be around 20 years from now to continue to provide the products and services that people need because you have what our world needs. That's how I brought as a banker into my art business.
That's wonderful. Another question we had, Sarah was asking, what's your opinion on this? She wanted to know, she's going to go into a new field of art, but she said she doesn't exactly have any examples of this kind of work. So how do you build a portfolio around this new field while trying to sell yourself at the same time?
Well, that's a good question. I think solidifying. Let's just say as a sculptor, I started out painting, but let's say as a sculptor, I've got a good body of work in sculpture. Okay, now, but at the same time, I do photography, but not many people know of my photography. But solidifying the brand as a sculptor first, developing the exhibits, in other words, the history and the story of your journey as an artist, and now moving into another discipline, another medium, you bring the history with you. I'll give you a good example. If you recall, on the screen there was a large red sculpture on a building that had looked like it was a fire station actually. Albert Paley, and you guys Google Albert Paley. He's a world-renowned artist. I've been to his studio, 35,000 square feet. To envy, okay. But here's what happened. He is such a phenomenal sculptor. I received on his email list, he's now taking designs of his and he's putting them on area rugs in exclusive buildings. So that's an example of he's built a reputation as a renowned artist, a sculptor, etc. And now he's moving into a completely new field, if you will, of work being created. And he's taking some of his sculptures and some of his abstract paintings or designs, and he's putting them on rugs for folks' homes and for nice exclusive hotels, etc. So start small, create that reputation, if you will, of as the artist and the branding, etc., and then venture when you're ready into another medium.
That's perfect.
Some folks challenge, say, well, I want to stick with one thing, and I don't want to be all over the place. Well, I respectfully disagree. Um, I also do glass work as well, glass jewelry, uh, welding, etc. So hopefully that answers your question.
I think it was great. Out of curiosity, do you have an opinion on a social media site functioning as your website versus having a traditional website? Do you have an opinion on that?
That's a very good question. This you will get into much more deeply when you speak with the presenter. Will talk about your business plan, and the most important thing is this: the social media that you use has to be adaptive to the target audience. Okay, because say for example, if you're trying to reach seniors, it's very likely that seniors are not going to be on Instagram or Snapchat. Okay, so that knowing who your customer is important. When you know who your customer is, the demographics, ethnicity, income, Then the other part of the discussion is knowing what the psychographics is. And what I mean by that is, how does your customer think? What magazines do they read? What social media platforms do they explore? Are they on Facebook, or are they on Instagram, or are they on Snapchat and all those others? Then when you know how they think, then you want to be where they are when they're online. But if they're not on Facebook, then don't be on Facebook. I'm not saying not to have a Facebook page, but that may not be where your major source of marketing is. I have a publicist that does all my social media, and for the purpose of continually getting me out there, whatever it is I do, wherever I am, she places it out there because branding is important. You've got to have a presence, because out of sight, out of mind. But then when it comes to targeting your client base, that's where you need to do research to determine, okay, this is how I need to best focus on my primary target. But yes, I can have the Facebook and the Instagram, etc., but this is where my target market is and how I use my social media for it.
This isn't a question as much as I just wanted to share what Kim wrote in regards to what she has going on. And just so you know, she said she worked as a curator and led an artist in residence program for 7 years. And she said that professionalism and presentation are always key areas of evaluation for a reviewer. And she said that she passed up on collaboration with artists who went missing or didn't respond to her inquiry seriously or in a timely manner. And she agreed with you, don't underestimate the power of professionalism.
Yes, I actually, I don't have a foundry where I create my bronze work. I create the work, I take it to a foundry. They have all the equipment, etc. And this one particular manufacturer, if you will, I reached out to him. He was referred. This was many, many years ago, and it was a week later he calls me back, and I said, "Thank you for calling me back, but I've moved on." Here's why. What That's an example of professionalism. When someone calls you, within 24 hours, at the most 48 hours, you should return that person's phone call, because particularly if they're looking to do business with you. If they're looking to do business with you and you're not coming through, okay, then that's not a good sign. And I don't want the day I have deadlines to meet and you're not coming through for me. I have a client that's a billionaire, and I won't mention their names because some of you may or may not know them, but I only had one chance to come out of the gate looking right the first time, because they have the financial resources to go someplace else.
Of course.
Professionalism. And when we do that, ladies and gentlemen, we then dispel the myth and the concept that folks have of us as artists, that we're just like, got our heads in the clouds. We've inhaled too many oil paint fumes and, joking, but that is the reality. Yeah, that is the reality.
I think it's also true, especially because think about how many options people have nowadays, and when we underestimate that and maybe over-evaluate ourselves a little bit too much and forget about almost like those simple everyday manners, and which is professionalism and simple things, it goes a long way with people. And even just talking to people in person, what an amazing I've experienced being in publishing has done versus an email and talking and making a human connection, which we're now making a new human connection this way. We may not be seeing each other in person, but we're still making a human connection. And I think that's what maybe sometimes people are forgetting, which comes into the fact why you're a creative, you're an entrepreneur. It's those two things that go together, because you're talking so much about mentality and psychology and sales outside of being an artist.
I will share with you, a couple of years ago, I invested in a thank you card. And it's a design that when the card is open, my logo pops up as a 3-dimensional piece.
So clever.
On paper. So I did that for two reasons. One, when I meet with the client and we consummate the sale or what have you, they receive from me a thank you note, not by email, okay, but a card. The fact that you take the time, I took the time to actually write a note, which we don't do today because of emails, etc., or texting. I sent them a note to say thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for your business, etc. And then they open it up, and there's my logo, George Gadson Studio. So my point I'm making is that we don't lose the human touch. We
Mhm.
know that is so important. And see, I love looking in a person's eyes because their eyes tell me about their soul. So when we can have that face-to-face exchange and then follow up with something written, it just puts us in a different category compared to, say, some other professions.
That's so wonderful, and you're so exactly right. One other question we got was, we may have discussed this before, but maybe also just for people that may or may not be just tuning
Yes.
in right now, especially with COVID right now and everything that's going on in the world outside of this, how do we stay focused in as artists right now if we can't have a community together?
That's a very good question. This is important. This whole COVID uh, situation we're in right now has caused me to begin to think, how can I still connect with people, and particularly
Yes.
nonprofits, kids. I do kids classes, etc. Used to be doing the face-to-face type of thing. So how do I still keep them connected? And this is going to be the way to do it for right now. Okay. And then, of course, once this lifts, then we'll go back to using wisdom with the safe distancing and all of those things. But being creative and thinking outside the box. The other important thing is this: if you have a client base and they haven't heard from you since this whole pandemic, then shame on you. And I say that because you can still be in communication with them and let them know I'm still here. In fact, I'm looking for new and creative ways to stay in touch with you. Actually, at today at 1 o'clock, I'm scheduled to be on a Zoom, Google with my nephew, and because they want to take our classes. Okay,
Oh, that's nice.
so using the what we have now to work with to stay connected to our communities and bringing to bear what we do as artists.
That's wonderful. Some people were asking also if you could re-mention some of the books that you
Yes,
had mentioned
yes.
before as
Um,
resources.
yes, one is Dig Your Wells Before You're Thirsty. That's by Harvey McKay. And the premise is about developing relationships. The book, um, Legal Aid for Visual Artists, last name authors Crawford. It's a very good book that gives you templates and samples, and you can, create your own contracts or assignment agreements. That call for entry, callforentry.org is a website that I've used to find out about public art opportunities, art exhibitions throughout the country. And of course, you have to have a body of work. And if I could just sidetrack for a second, if
Sure.
you don't have a body of work, and to the young lady who asked about just getting started out, focus on short term creating a good body of work, at least 25 works of art minimum, so that now you'll be ready to do a show if you've been invited to do a one-man show. So call for entry allows you to upload your work on your own your own platform, if you will. So when you know of exhibitions or a call to artists for public art, you can then click on the photographs that you can submit. I think it's a maximum of 10 along with description. So call for entry. And then there's also a number of different grants out there um, uh, that is available for artists as well. And if you email me, I can sort of send you the link for that. There's a site, the archiveworks.com, I believe it is. They actually have on their site that particular uh, information on grants and opportunities for 2020 for artists.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, Fabio, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, mentioned that entertainment and all forms of art will be more important than ever based after what's going on with COVID. And
Absolutely.
especially now, what are some things that you're doing right now, George, to keep yourself hyped up, pepped up, and motivated? So when we come out of this, you know, you haven't just turned around and saw a year fly by. What are some things that you're doing?
Well, I'm reading. I read a lot. You know, I read. At the same time, I kind of keep my pulse on the new way of thinking right now, and I'm not one that watches the news all the time, but again, we as artists, there's a phrase, I think Levi Strauss said this: art is proof that anything has ever happened in the past.
Oh, wow.
So by being aware of what is happening in our environment right now, you as a dancer, as a writer, as a photographer, you know, that can have an influence on what you create or what we create. So it's that, and quite frankly, right now, I'm actually getting ready to work on a $200,000 project for creating a monument for a group of folks. So that's where my main focus is right now in terms of getting that done. So, but I'm always in tune with the environment and thinking about how can I meet or work with a different group, doing an online class with kids who may not have the wherewithal to do it. So my tentacles are out there, but right now the focus on this major project is what my main activity is right now.
So what you're telling me is you're diversified,
That's right.
you're adapting, and you're evolving, and you're not afraid to do so, which I think sometimes as an artist, we can get so stuck in our heads as I create this one medium, this is what I have to do, and you can't see outside the context, because what you're telling me is you're telling me the opposite of that. And that adaptability has given you life and has given you opportunity to see things when they're not there.
I'll give you an example of, and this is where my shift was some time ago. One of the services that I provide, I'm a consultant to municipalities that have public art programs. Okay, and I used to sit on and still have participated in the review panel with the Broward Cultural Division, selecting the right artists to be selected for the public art. Many years ago, I realized that the artists who are more likely to get a project would be those who can do a number of different things. All I can do is just a sculpture, and there's a call to artists for a wall mural. Pardon me. If there's a call to artists for a wall mural, and if I've never done a wall mural before, then I can't apply. But if I've done a portrait of an individual, and I've done a number of them, Darden Restaurants, the founder of Darden, Dr. Kathleen Wright. Now, if there's a call to artists for a statue of an individual, for a monument, I can do that. So my point being is I did not pigeonhole myself into one medium, one way of expression, so that I can make myself available and put my work out there for public art opportunities. And believe it or not, folks, mosaic tile, I've done those as well. So yes, there's a main discipline, which is sculpture, but I can do the others also. So that I can look for those opportunities. And when sculptures are not in, and I'm not commissioned to do that, I can do this and still keep the cash register ringing.
That's perfect. That's wonderful. You know, one thing I want to just make sure of, and also a lot of people were asking, so I want to make sure to let everybody know that this is a recorded broadcast. So if you came in at the end or missed some part of it, don't worry. This will be staying live, and you'll be able to access it later on, because we don't want to have you miss anything of what George had mentioned. But I want to make sure, is there any lasting sentiments or thoughts that you said in your presentation, but are the ones that have just really ring true? I especially, I want to make sure to mention, I love your time. Quote is an equal opportunity. What was the quote?
Time is an equal opportunity employer.
I love that quote. Because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. No one's special.
Yep.
No one gets any extra time unless you're time warping.
Yep.
And you know what? It's amazing because I think people forget that, you forget how true that is. So is there any thoughts to leave everybody with that's really important to you?
Here's a thought. We were brought into this earth out of all the millions of sperms that came about through, our parents coming together. Only one took root, if you will, and here we are today. So this is no accident. So there's a purpose for being here. You have to determine what is that purpose. Like a butterfly starts with this. Inside that butterfly, inside that egg is everything that's needed to become a butterfly. So you have the gifts, I have the gifts. We have a purpose. It's not just to be here on this earth to breathe air. Some of you are passionate about the environment. Some of you are passionate about human trafficking. Some of you are passionate about, you say, homelessness. How can we take what's inside of you and use that as a vehicle and as a catalyst to bring about change in those areas that you are? So know that you have purpose, and once you focus on your purpose, your day and your life will always be full of hope because you have a goal and a focus that keeps you going. And that's what I have to offer.
That's beautiful. I think what really rings true to me when you say that is that also just to stay connected with others that think like you.
Right.
Because when I hear that, I feel very inspired. I'm like, what should I do now with my life? I need to do something. So it's really powerful. And if I could have you say that to me every day, I'd probably be 10 times more motivated.
Just remember this. This is important too. And there's a work-life balance. Those of you that have families, those of you who don't have families but have friendships that are valuable friendships, valuable family, there's a balance. Okay, so you've got to manage your time. So quality of life is important. Chasing after the almighty dollar isn't it. At the end of the day, I don't think I've ever seen a hearse being followed by a Brinks truck.
I like that.
I don't think so. But at the end of the day, the person who has a good, solid balance in terms of balancing their relationships, balancing their life, that's the person who lives a fulfilled life. So the key thing is eliminating those time wasters, those individuals who are pulling you down. If you are in an environment or a relationship that when you leave that environment or you leave that relationship, you are drained and you repeatedly are drained and you're depressed, may I encourage you to delete their names from your phone. They're not for you. They're not about pushing you to become what's inside of you. Potential is what is inside waiting to take place, not what has happened in the past. That's how I live my life.
So how do I get these daily George inspirations sent to me? Because I need to be motivated by you every day.
Well, I'm working on that. I'm working on. I have photographs and I have a book I mentioned to you that I published in 2013, and I'm working on. And I set my birthday as a time to have it done, along with my public art book. I'm creating a public art book that shows all my art. So stay tuned.
George, do you have social media that we can follow you on?
Yes, I have Facebook, a Facebook page, and I actually have Instagram too. But now this sounds crazy. My publicist, I have her handle all of that. So if you Google my name, there's definitely George Gadson Facebook, and I also have the Instagram, but she handles that, and shame on me, I can't tell you what it is.
We won't tell anybody. We'll all keep it a big secret, so don't worry.
See, I too need to work on that. That I need to at least have that part. I know the Facebook, but the other, she handles that, and yeah.
That's okay. So below, I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is, I'm not perfect. I'm still a work in progress as well. Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Mm-hmm.
So we have George's website down below, georgegadsonstudios.com. He also has the Facebook and the Instagram that we're going to check out. George, you've been nothing but inspirational and motivating. And this is definitely, COVID or not, the things that we need to hear all the time.
All the time.
As creative people. And we are a community here.
That's right.
This is a community. Broward Cultural Division is a community. We are all here to be a resource to everybody. We are here to uplift and inspire. And I don't want anybody to ever forget that, because every one of us is nervous and scared. Yeah. But when we come together like this is when wonderful things happen, and that's when wonderful things start to occur. So I want to thank you, George, for your time.
Thank you.
And I want to make sure to mention again, everyone's going to be able to see this broadcast in its entirety. So thank you so much for everything, George.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the Broward Cultural Division.
So, hello, everybody. I hope you really enjoyed George and his presentation. I was inspired, and especially when we did the Q&A. I want to thank everybody for giving us questions and sending your comments. It really helps. I know this is a new normal that we have to interact with one another through a computer screen. So I want to make sure to mention that up next, we're going to be talking to Erica Ando. But we want to give everyone a moment to have a little break. And I'm going to be refilling my coffee cup. So I don't know what you guys are doing out there. And we're going to take a break and make sure to come back. We will start with Erica, and she will be on shortly at 10:35. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Business Skills for the Modern Creator, presented by the Broward County's Cultural Division. My name is Angela. And if you're just now joining us, welcome. And if you've been with us the whole time, welcome back as well. I hope you got your coffee and your water and you're ready for the second session because we have some really great information to continue to share with you guys. Just so you know, if you missed the first part, we did have a first session which was called Understanding Your Business, and that all of this is going to be recorded, so you'll be able to rewatch it. Don't worry, it'll be out there for you to see again. So first and foremost, I want to now talk to you about our next presenter. We're going to be talking about career planning for artists with our speaker, Erica Ando. So Dr. Ando is a career coach for artists and is the founder of the Empowered Artist. And she has over 20 years of experience working with artists and creative entrepreneurs as an arts writer, independent curator, museum educator, grant writer, and creative business owner. And her mission is to empower artists to pursue their dreams, thrive creatively, and build successful careers on their terms with purpose and authenticity. So I'd like to send you over to Erica now.
So I want to tell you a story. About 6 months ago, an artist came to me. She contacted me because basically her career was at a standstill. She'd been painting for about 10 years. She'd had some success in selling her work. She had a few exhibitions, but basically she didn't know how to proceed. She didn't really know what to do next. And so what I did was I asked her, what's your vision for your future? What's your vision for your career? And she really couldn't say. She said some vague things like, I want to be successful, or I want to make enough money to, I don't know, I just want to make enough money. And so what I told her was this, that not having a vision for your career is like taking a trip without having a destination. And so I'm going to offer that to you today, that we're going to create a vision so that you have a path, so you can actually start to create a path and have a direction and get to your vision. And so I'm super excited to talk to you about this today. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for to the Broward Cultural Division for organizing this. So some ground rules. Let's talk about, I'd like you to have some place where you can jot some notes because we're going to do some exercises. And if you can, turn off your phone, put it somewhere else. Turn off your notifications, because I'm figuring that you're here because you want to move your career to the next level. I'm figuring that you want to get your career going, and basically you're looking for something to push it forward. My goal for you today is for you to walk away with the tools and the knowledge to envision your career and then to create it with intention. So we're going to break this down into about 3 major sections. One is the visioning part, and we'll work on that vision. The next part will be bridging the gap between where you are right now and where you want to go. And then the third part will be doing the work and the day-to-day work that's going on. So you'll see on the slide here, I'm presenting this workshop as the No Resistance, No Hesitation workshop because of this. Basically, if you Googled how to have a successful art career, you'd get a lot of information. It's really easy to get information, and you know something, a lot of that information is good. It really is pretty good. The problem is what happens when you start trying to implement that for yourself. You come up with all kinds of resistance, all kinds of hesitation, and I feel like my job is to help you figure out how to overcome that resistance and hesitation so that you can be successful. Okay, so by the way, thank you for coming. It's so weird to not to be able to see you guys. I wish I could. Okay, so what is a vision? Okay, so a vision is something that is it's something that you see, but it's not something that you actually see. It's something that exists in your mind. It's something that's out there, and it is something that's unique to you. And so when we're talking about your vision, we're really talking about not just a vision for your career, we're talking about a vision for your whole life. And your career is part of that life. And so when we're thinking about that vision, instead of having these vague ideas about, I want to have a successful career, we are going to think about how you want to spend your time and how you want to live your life. Who you want to spend your time with. And so we'll talk about what's important to you and what gives you joy and what you want to spend your time doing. Okay, so I'm going to offer you this exercise called the perfect day. And if you haven't downloaded it yet from the link that was sent to you, don't worry about that, because I'm going to talk you through it. What we are going to do, I think we're skipping ahead on these slides. Yep, you can go backwards. Okay, so with the perfect day exercise, what we want to do is really get to what you want to spend your time doing. So for example, so if we can just start to jot down what we want to do. So imagine waking up in the morning and just waking up, and where are you? So we want to talk about and think about where we are and envision where we are when we wake up. Are you in your house? Are you in an apartment? Are you living in a city? Are you living in the country? And we want to think about this in terms of a schedule. And the reason why I'm saying let's look at this in terms of a schedule is because this is how we can actually see this successful career or this perfect day in your career as part of your life. So as you paint this vision in detail, think about now next. Okay, so if you're working on your art, what are you actually spending your time doing? When you go to the studio, where is that studio? What does that studio look like? How big is that studio? And write down where you're doing your work, what projects you might be working on, who you're working with. Are you working by yourself? Are you working with other people? And so instead of thinking about what's your idea of success, we're thinking really in terms about what we're doing day to day and what's giving you joy, what's important to you. Now let's think further about your career. So if we're thinking about your career, you're thinking about what kind of projects you're working on, and really try not to censor yourself. So you're thinking about, are you working on a collaboration with other people? Is it something that involves the public? Is it something that is for just yourself and that you will share later on? So a lot of times people will say things like, okay, I want to be successful and my goal is to, I don't know, have a solo exhibition at the Whitney Museum. I want to perform at Lincoln Center, something like this. So let's think about that. If that's your idea of a successful career or your perfect day, what would you actually be doing if you were performing at Lincoln Center? What you'd actually be doing is maybe you would be rehearsing. That's actually what you would be doing. Maybe you would be just relaxing before your big performance. So this is how we want to start breaking down what that success looks like in a day-to-day way. And so that's why we want to create a schedule. And if we have the next slide, it just basically says, paint that vision in detail. Really paint that vision. So you may be thinking about even what you're wearing throughout the day when you're doing this. You may be thinking, okay, at lunchtime, I'm going to have lunch with a friend. You may be thinking, okay, I'm going to answer my emails. And who am I going to answer those emails? What emails am I going to be answering? Or maybe you're going to be talking to your assistant who's going to be answering those emails for you. So I'm saying things about your assistant and Lincoln Center or whatever that may be, the Whitney Museum, because what we want to do in this vision is really think and stretch our imaginations and not think about what's doable. A lot of times we will end up thinking about, okay, this is what I can achieve. This is what I can do, instead of thinking, what would I really love to be doing? And so I'm going to ask you, okay, to put in the chat, where are you, when you imagine your perfect day, where are you practicing your art? So let's just put that in the chat. And let's see if we can make that into oh, the beach. Okay. Yes, the beach is part of that perfect day. And so I really want to stress here too that we can't really separate. We're not going to separate our careers from our life. Part of your perfect day can end with having dinner with your family and just hanging out and having fun. And we must include fun and play and all of that, because what are we here for, right? Samantha Jones, she's in a huge warehouse with it leading out to a big yard and pool. I love that. Jillian Kennedy says she's at her home studio. I love that. Okay. Cheryl Brown, a large storefront studio with ample space in an arts district. I love that. So we want to be thinking, we really want to be thinking big. This is not the time to be small balling it. This is not the time to censor yourself. So if you didn't get the download, don't worry. This is an exercise that honestly it can take a week to do. I mean, it can take a long time to do. And it can also be really hard. A lot of artists, I find, end up thinking about what they can do. And so when you start what they can do instead of what they really, really in their hearts want. So please do this exercise really lets you know, especially when you put it in terms of a schedule, it lets you know what's important to you. It lets you know what's valuable to you so that you can, and also prioritize. So think about when you, like George said, he talked about time management, prioritizing. So this is what you do when you create a schedule. You must prioritize what you do. Make sure you include, because this is about career visioning, make sure you include in there things that you want to do in your career, in your business, that's not just doing your artwork. So you want to make sure that there's time. So, okay, so if you are having this exhibition at the Whitney Museum, what are you going to be doing? You may be giving an interview. You may be having to do PR and marketing. So break down what it is you would actually be doing. Okay, so the other thing is this. So it's not just about getting clear about our values, but if we can imagine this, it can exist. I always say, people didn't get to the moon by accident. They planned it. So if we can imagine it, it's actually just stretching our imaginations. So I can tell you about a client that I had who said, she was saying, oh, I want this home studio, and I want to wake up in the morning and go to my home studio. And I said, okay, you own your home? And she said, yes, I own my home. And I said, well, how much money do you think you need to own your home? And she said, I don't know. I never thought about that. So, and I said, well, how much money do you think you need to make in a year? And she said, well, I don't know. I never thought about that. And I've never made very much money ever. So we threw out a number, and she said, oh my God, that's so much money. I've never made that much money before. And we did that. And she said, oh my God, I can't, that's too much. The week after, she came back and she said, you know what? Why not? Why can't I make that money? So if money is something that you are thinking about, put in a number value. How much, so when you're doing this envisioning, how much money did you make last year? And this is also where people will get stopped up, because they'll start automatically thinking, oh my God, what's doable? Oh, I mean, I've never made that before. But unless you make that jump and say, okay, this is a number and I can do it, it can never really become that real, or we stumble on it by accident. And that's what we're trying to not to do here, is to just wade in the waters and stumble on things by accident. Yes, it's true that life happens, opportunities come our way. It's true that things will happen, and wonderful things will happen without our planning. That's true. But this is really a different way of thinking about it. Instead of being reactive, and instead of just doing what is in our line of fire, or just putting out fires, or trying to get to the next day, this is a way for you to get some kind of direction, and to be able to figure out what you should be doing on a day-to-day basis. Okay. So I'm really going to say, please, 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 if you do anything at all, do this exercise. Do it in a place that's quiet, no distractions, and please, please, please do the visioning exercise and create a schedule for yourself. If we were doing this in real life, we would do some of it, but I don't think we would even get to it, because I think you need to just be with yourself. You just need to just feel what's important to you. Another case in point. So I had a client do this exercise, and she was envisioning, you can envision, say, 5 years out or 10 years out, something that's far out enough into the future. And she said, you know what? I realized I want to have children. Like, wow. I mean, so by just envisioning what your life would be like if it was perfect, this is a way that you can see your values and what's important to you really clearly. Okay, so how are you guys doing here? Okay, so yes, Phoenix. Often wonderful things happen without our planning on them, because we actually did have the clear intention to begin with. That's beautiful. I think that's wonderful, because we actually, by having a vision, we're taking the big picture, and we are opening ourselves up to possibilities. And if we're just putting one foot forward and just doing the next thing that comes our way and waiting for somebody to ask us to do things, we really never get to that place where, yes, Eduardo, we're stretching. Exactly. We're stretching that muscle in ourselves that believes in our own possibility. Okay, so as a side note, I hope you guys are staying with me. If you go to my website, this is an off note, you can sign up for free stuff. Boost Your Art Career in 5 days. It's a mini series that I have, and you can sign up to get it. And I urge you to do that. Okay. I'm seeing great things in the chat here. Kim Yantis says that I'm at that after 50 years old stage and reinventing. So this is a perfect exercise. It's perfect at any age. It's really perfect. Yes, it's a perfect exercise for anybody at any stage. Young, you could be in your 20s, you could be in your 70s, and this is great because it really lets you decide on what direction you want to go. Okay, Fabio, here's my vision. Investor gives me 10 million to produce my film. No, I think we're going to get back to that in a bit. Okay, so I want to talk now about bridging the gap. Let's see, next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to caution you here. Okay, bridging the gap between where you are now and where you want to go. I'm going to caution you here because this is what everybody wants. Everybody wants the strategies, the formulas, the tips and the tricks. That's what everybody wants. But I'm going to say it again, that unless you have a destination, you can't create the itinerary. And bridging that gap is really about creating the itinerary. So please, please, please spend some time on the visioning and then figure out the bridging the gap part. Okay, so, and everybody always wants to know, what should I do? What should I do next? Is this better? Is that better? Is it better to have a website? Is it better to be on Instagram? All kinds of things. But when you have a vision, all these questions become a lot clearer. But I don't want to leave you hanging with creating your vision and then not let you know how you could get there. So, and I could have easily called this workshop career planning or career building, but I really want to stress the part where you get to spend time on what's important to you and that's unique to you. Okay, so next slide. Okay, when you do your vision, you can look at your vision and look at this schedule of yours and ask yourself, okay, now what's available to me right now? What's available to me right now from what I've said? And what could you have right now with just a few modifications? And people are often surprised that they have a lot of what they want. You may say, so for example, you may say, my perfect day involves working in the studio for 4 hours. Okay, so maybe you are working 4 hours total a week, but you'd like to do that each day. So what you could do with some modifications, you can work towards that. And we'll talk about that later, but something like that is totally doable. And look at what is totally doable right now. And so I always like to think that we have enough right now, and we're just working towards getting more of what we want, but what we have right now is good. Okay. I'm looking at the chat, so I'm looking away. Cheryl Brown, my daily philosophy is to stay in the moment and really enjoy each day no matter what. That's beautiful. And I think that kind of contentment or feelings of sufficiency is beautiful and really what we want to get to no matter what we have or what we don't have. Next slide, please. Okay. Now in this slide, I'm going to take a little time to talk about this because when you look at your vision, there are going to be things on it. People will say, well, I have no idea how to, I want to have a solo exhibition at the Whitney Museum. I have no idea. I have no idea how to do that. But that's my definition. Like, that's what I really want. And that's fine, whatever you want. But that's not what you can control. So distinguish on your list, on your schedule, between what you can control and what somebody else controls. and you know that you can never control other people. You can't control what they, the decisions they make. But then, so how do you work on that? So how could you work on becoming the artist who has whatever that is? This performance in a venue that everybody wants to be in, being chosen for a prize that everybody wants. So how do you do that? And so I like to use an example from outside of art. Okay, so think about, and you hear about this all the time, think about somebody who wants to go to the Olympics. Okay, so say, it's a person who's maybe not a world-class athlete, is a good athlete, but not world-class, but wants to go to the Olympics. And you hear stories about things like this all the time, where people achieve what they want. And it's not just hard work. So what does that person do? That person, well, let's think about it. So she will start to create habits and create an environment that supports her success. So what do I mean by that? She might start eating better. So she's going to start eating better. She's going to sleep more. She may hire a trainer and get a workout regimen. She may start on the local level of being in whatever it is, in races at the local level, and then move up from there. So in terms of creating habits, I think this is what becomes important, is that this person is becoming the athlete who can go to the Olympics. So I would say that to you, is that's something that you can control. You can't control what somebody else is going to decide about your future, but you can control how you show up every day. You can control things like how much time you spend on your art and your practice. You can control things like your marketing and how you market. You can control things like the people that you reach out to and your networking. Okay. And so think about that when you're looking at your vision. So in the chat, let's see what's in your vision that you think you can control versus what somebody else controls. And then there's a delay here, so just waiting for the chats to populate. Okay, nobody's answering the question? Okay, we'll just move on. So what we want to do when we're bridging that gap is to focus on what we can do. Again, we are becoming the person, we're becoming the artist who will be that person who can get whatever that thing is that you're not controlling. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, Cheryl Brown says, I can control how often I go to my studio to work. Absolutely. Okay, so reverse engineer the vision. Okay, so how we can bridge that gap between what you have now and what you want, where you want to go, is this. Okay, so last night, actually I started watching this show on Netflix called *Halt and Catch Fire*. I had never heard of it before, but it's it's a story about how these people are they buy an IBM computer because they want to make something like that but better. So what do they do? And they are actually literally use that term, reverse engineer the vision. I was like, oh my God, that's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Reverse engineer the vision. So what they do is they literally take the IBM computer that they want to copy, they literally take it apart. And so that's what I'm going to urge you to do, is to take that vision and strip it down into parts. And that's why I'm also stressing that schedule, because we often think about this vision as something that's so outside of us and not having anything to do with our lives, or not having anything to do with actual thoughts that we have or activities that we do. And so we want to break down. So for example, that vision of working 4 hours in your studio. If you want to work 4 hours in your studio, so you might start with working half an hour in your studio. You might start with just doing that, and then say the next week, add another half an hour. One of the things, all the jobs I've ever had, so one thing I used to do is I used to train runners to run total beginners, to run a half marathon. Okay, so I have beginners come to me and they want to run 13 miles. So what do? We don't start out running 13 miles. For some of them, maybe we start out just walking, and we don't walk 13 miles. We may just start walking half a mile or a mile, and we build up to it. So this is what I mean about reverse engineering the vision, is that you look at that big picture and then you break it down into steps. And yes, it takes patience. It takes perseverance. It takes just putting one foot forward, to use that running metaphor. That's what it takes, just to keep going. Okay. Okay, so the money. A lot of artists don't want to talk about money, and I get it. We have a lot of issues around money, especially in art. But I'm not going to get into that here. I'm going to talk about, say, your goal of making a certain amount of money. Okay, let's say, and I'm just saying this for the purpose of being being able to break this down. Okay, say you want to make $72,000 a year. Okay, you go, oh my God, that's so much money. How am I going to make $72,000 a year? That's a lot of money. So then we'll say, okay, what if we break that down into a month? What would happen if we broke that down into a monthly income goal? So that means that you'd be making $6K a month. All right, I was like, okay, how am I going to make $6K a month? So let's break that down into a week. So when we do that, that becomes $1,500 a week. Now, I don't know what your art is, but say you do a performance and you get paid $500 for it. What that means is that's 3 performances a week to make your $1,500 a week, so that you are able to make $72,000 in a year. You could be selling a painting for that same amount of money, and you would have to sell 3 paintings a week. Or how about this? If you raised your prices, if you raised your prices to $750, you'd have to sell 2 paintings a week, or you'd have to do 2 performances a week. So now all of a sudden I think it gets really much more manageable. And this is an example of reverse engineering that vision, because now we can start to understand that money, or those money goals. And so creating that vision really allows you to create goals on a weekly basis. So when we reverse engineer, we can reverse it into monthly goals. I mean, the way I do it is yearly goals, quarterly goals, monthly goals, and weekly goals. And so you're basically, and those weekly goals really ends up being a to-do list. Okay. So anything in the chat here, any thoughts? And don't forget, we're going to be doing Q&A. So if you have any questions, start putting them in the chat. Okay, next slide, please. So those were two things that I'm going to leave you with about bridging the gap. And here, I want to talk to you about actually doing the work. And what I talked about earlier, which was this no resistance, no hesitation thing, because I pretty much assume that what I assume in talking to you is that, look, I mean, everybody wants to, would probably rather do their work, probably would rather do their art than do marketing or PR or any of these things. And sometimes even doing your art becomes a bit of a chore, especially in that day-to-day. So what I say is that, one, I'm going to give you some tips and tips so that you can just reframe what you're doing every day from, why can't I do this, to, oh, well, I can't do this and this is normal. I think it's perfectly normal to not want to do things every day. Okay, so we humans, we don't like to be uncomfortable. We humans aren't actually built to have great visions. So we're actually built to be safe, to stay with the herd, to not do the big things, to do the crazy things. So when we want to do things that are beyond what we can do and stay comfortable every day, we get very uncomfortable. And when we get uncomfortable, we get very hesitant, we get very resistant. So the first thing I want to offer to you is this: don't rely on your motivation. A lot of artists will, and I mean, we all do this. I do this, just not feeling it today, so I'm not going to do it. So if we rely on that, need to be inspired or motivated to do something, we often won't do it. So in order to get around that, we create habits. So creating the habit to just go to the studio, even if you don't do anything there, the habit is to just go there. Even if the habit is to work on, say, updating your website, you don't feel like it, you do it anyway. And you would be surprised at how much you can do when you're feeling at 50% and what you can actually just accomplish by just doing something because you've made it a habit. Talked to an artist that I work with yesterday, and she was talking about a gallery contacted her and wants to show her work, and they found her and found her website. Now, the website was something she was just, she just couldn't move on that thing. I mean, it was just taking her, she spent a long time just not wanting to make a website. And when she finally did, she was like, okay, I'm just going to put it up. It's not perfect. I'm just going to put it up. I'm feeling about it. But because she had the website, the gallery was able to find her. Okay, next slide, please. Again, do what you control, what you can control. So we talked about this earlier. Don't worry about what you can't control. Do what you can do. I'm not going to say more about that because we covered it before. Okay, so the next slide, please. Have your own back. What does that mean? This means support yourself. So imagine, what do you do when you have someone else's back? You support them. You'll say, hey, it's okay, right? If somebody said to you, I really don't feel like, this is just not working out for me, you'd say, hey, that's okay. Say that to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Have your own back. Next slide, please. Okay, do it anyway. I think do it anyway to me is like a muscle. And this goes along with creating habits. You don't feel like doing something, you do it anyway. You don't feel like doing your marketing today, you do it anyway. You don't feel like networking, you do it anyway. And really, you don't have to rely on inspiration. You don't have to feel 100% to do it anyway. Next slide, please. Okay, so a lot of times people will say, and just watch your own speech. People will say, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to proceed. And so I'll say, well, what if you know? What if you knew what to do? And what happens when you make that shift is that you become curious rather than shutting down. Because when you say, I don't know, excuse me, when you say, I don't know, it just shuts your brain down, and it keeps you from even being curious or wanting to know. But what if you ask yourself, what if I know? What if I knew what to do? And that automatically puts you in a different frame of mind where you are solving your problems. So say you're struggling with something and say, I don't know what to do right now. I don't know if I should do this or that. And then, so ask yourself, what if I knew what to do? And let's see. So those are some tips on how to get through the hesitation and the resistance that you might feel. So I just want to end this presentation by saying, create your destination so that you can create your itinerary. And so when you can envision your career, you can create a direction and create your own path. So thank you very much for coming, and I hope you stay for the Q&A so I can answer your questions. And here, okay, so you can find me at, here's my website. Send me an email. You can download I think Angela actually sent you, or you were sent the worksheet link. And you can get my free mini series, Boost Your Art Career in 5 Days. I'd love to hear from you. Ask me questions, email me, and that's it. Thank you so much.
Hi, Erica.
Hey.
Thank you so much for all of that information. So
Thank
I
you.
have gone through our comments, and don't worry, if you still have questions, please feel free to send them through now, because we're going to start doing a little bit of a Q&A with Erica. So Samantha had a question, and she said, do you suggest looking at other artists who have met their goals? And I'm assuming for her own success is what she's saying.
I mean, okay, so my question would be, what are you looking at them for?
That's a good point. So
what are you looking at them for so that you can copy them? So I'll say this, that's often what people do. People will look at other artists who have success, and they'll try to copy that success. And often, I think that's where we get messed up, because maybe that's not our path. We might not have the same values as they have. And that's where we get kind of messed up and not clear about what's important to us. And so if we're looking at ourselves, and so when you're looking at other people and you're saying, okay, that would be really really successful for me, ask yourself, what about it is making you feel that? So it's not the actual thing, it's what you're getting from the thing. It's a feeling that you're getting from the thing. So it could be like, I want recognition. Okay, it could be, I want recognition. I want to make a lot of money. I want, I want people to see my work. So those could be what that is. And so then if that's what's important to you, then you can also look at many different examples of how you could get there. And I think it's instructive to look at other people. I don't think I don't think you should not look at other people, but you really have to start with what's important to you and your own values, and think about, okay, how would that make me feel? And with that, okay, if I achieve that, would that make me feel calm? Would that make me feel secure? Would that make me feel, that people wanted to see my work? And so I don't know if that answers your question. I think it can be very instructive because it can show you different paths. It can show you different venues that you can take. But I would really start with some deep digging into yourself.
Perfect. So Eduardo is asking, how do you factor in starting from zero and the need to devote time to a salary job in the meantime?
Okay, so I don't know what you mean by starting from zero, because I'm gonna counter that you're not starting from zero. I would say the fact that you're here means that you're not starting from zero. And so I would say, give yourself a little bit more credit. Give yourself a little bit more credit. And you know what? Being an artist, people will say, I want to be a full-time artist. Or I'm not an artist unless I can work, 40 hours a week on that. But I'm going to say this, that if you're here, you're an artist. I think if you're here, you're an artist. And to give yourself credit for that. If you need to work at a job, it just means that you have to prioritize your time better. That's all it means. And I don't actually even believe in time management. I believe in self-management, so that you can't manage time, right? What is that? So basically, you need to manage yourself and do those things like create the habits, do it anyway, have your own back, and do all those things, because it's not that we don't have enough time. We all have the same amount of time, and nobody has enough time. So you have to create the time. Basically, you have to create the time to work on these things. And I always think that, so the way I do time management is to basically prioritize these things. And what I will do is think about, I'll do a huge to-do list at the beginning of the week, but I'll prioritize the things that I'll do that require some brain energy. It could be working on your art. It could be creating your website, anything that requires more than just doing an email or something simple. So it would be, I always say even doing your taxes is that, right? It's something that requires a little bit more from you than usual. And so block off, say, an hour to do that thing. If you can block off 2 hours. And for me, 2 hours is good. 4 hours to me is getting a little long. And then it becomes achievable, and you basically stick to that. You honor, I think of time management or self-management as honoring your commitment to yourself. So if you're going to a job, basically you're honoring a commitment to your employer, okay? But working on your art is a commitment to yourself, and honor that. So honor your vision, work towards your vision, and prioritize it. And don't let yourself off the hook. Maybe you need to get an accountability partner. Maybe you need somebody to hold you accountable. So, and maybe, when you go to a job, you're accountable to an employer. So maybe that's what you need, is to tell somebody, I'm going to be in my studio from, 6 to 8 every day.
I think having somebody that is accountable is so helpful, and not somebody accountable that's also gonna pat you on your shoulder when you're not doing what you're supposed to do. That's just somebody that's helping you, stay where you are. So I think you're speaking about somebody that's gonna push you and challenge you to become the best version of yourself, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And not let you off the hook.
Yes.
And not be like, oh, that's all right. You know?
Yeah. So probably no moms or grandmas or anybody that's going to just, do that for you. So, Paula wants to know, she says, having done for others my whole career, doing for myself is a challenge. So any suggestions on how to move forward for yourself?
Okay, so I would say this, that a lot of us, we are other people focused. And so it becomes really hard for us to do things for ourselves. But let's look at it this way. I think that a successful career has 3 components. Okay, that's your art, but your belief in your art. And all this has to do with belief. Your art and your belief in your art, yourself and your belief in yourself, that you can do this and that you can pull this off. And I mean the career part and the art making part. And the third part is this, your other people and your belief in other people. So when we look at it that way, meaning there are other people out there who want to see our work, they must absolutely have our work. So when you're doing your art and you're not having a hobby, but you're having a career and you're having an art business, you really rely on other people to make that happen for you. So I always like to think that you're creating value for other people. That's what you're doing when you're putting your art out there. You're giving them something of yourself. And so I would focus on that part of it. I mean, you can say, well, I'm doing it for myself. But if you're actually wanting to put your art out there and having them appreciate your art and understand your art, you're really, you have to give them credit for existing and wanting to see your art. So I would say that you're not really doing it for yourself. Ultimately, you're doing it for other people. Of course, you're doing it maybe day to day for yourself, but ultimately, you're going to be sharing it with the world.
Perfect. Sarah asks, I've tried visioning before and I get stuck because I want to do a lot of things. So she has 2 questions in there. So how do you determine the one route to go in? And then she says, how do you fight shiny object syndrome?
Oh, that's a good question.
And stay focused. I like that, say there.
Yeah, I love that question. So first of all, shiny object question is stuff, and shiny object syndrome is stuff that comes up when you on like every day, you go, oh, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that. I'll say this, you can have it all, okay? You can have it all, but when it comes down to, and that could be your vision even, that you're gonna have all this stuff. And I'll never tell you that you can't have all the stuff you want. You can have it. But it's a matter of then reverse engineering that thing and working on things one at a time. And you can even just say, I'm going to spend the next 3 months working on this one thing. And then I'm going to do the next 3 months working on the other thing. Because if you're trying to do a lot of things at the same time, you're going to be competing with yourself. And you're also, when things get tough in one area, you're going to say, I don't feel like doing that right now. I'm going to work on this other thing. And so you never really progress. And so I do think it's possible, more than possible, to do all the things, but I would just suggest picking one thing, and you cannot make a wrong decision about what to work on. You just can't. The main thing is to make that decision. And that's often what I see is a problem, is that people don't make that decision to just do that one thing. It doesn't mean you won't have the other stuff.
And I wonder, do you think that's because it's hard to just stick with it and kind of go the course and not be distracted by, let's say, things not working out? Here's a perfect time during COVID. Maybe projects have stopped, things that you were supposed to do now may not happen till the end of the year, if at all. Do you think that might be part of the reason why, staying the course, essentially?
Yeah. I mean, I truly believe that we just like naturally don't want to be uncomfortable. You know, that's my assumption. That's my assumption, is that we don't want to be uncomfortable. And so, okay. The way it's all mapped out, it's simple, but it's hard. Okay. It's going to be hard. Sometimes you are going to want to run away. Sometimes you are really not going to want to do this thing that you know you should be doing to get to that next level. But again, you do it anyway, right? You just do it anyway, and you learn. We can't be perfect. And so at no point can we be perfect. Can we, what do I want to say? I think this is a big point of hesitation and resistance with a lot of people, is that when things get tough, you say, well, I don't really have to do that. And so that's why a vision is so important, because you can look at that vision, and when you do that vision, really think about what you're going to get from having all these things. That's the thing that can keep you going. And so this vision isn't going to be what you can do. It's going to be something that is so compelling that you can look at that vision and say, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do my social media post this week and my marketing, even though I really don't want to do it, because I'm looking at my long-term vision.
And I think that goes back to what also you were saying before, because you have a very strategic plan. It's a lot of steps, simple, small steps that you're taking, not the big jump. It's those little things that you do, like you said, posting when you don't want to. But then it all adds up. You look back behind you and you say, wait, I just posted 30 days in a row. I didn't want to, but I did it. And then you start to see small results over time, which starts to give you confidence in yourself.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And it's those, and I can't stress enough those little tiny steps. And so that's why you do need to look at that big thing and then pull it back. So even an example, I always think traveling is such a great example, because you could say something like, okay, I want to travel the world, right? It's so vague and big. And then you go, well, I don't know what to do with that. You say, okay, I want to go to Italy. Okay, this pre-corona example probably, but I want to go to Italy. Okay, now I know how I can plan that. And then you go, okay, I want to go to Italy in the fall. Okay, now I really know how to plan that. And then you can start to plan, okay, I need to get a flight. I need to find a place to stay. And that's what I mean about reverse engineering, which is that you might have this kind of big, vague idea, but then you get as specific as possible, which allows you to create those teeny little steps that you work on every day.
That's perfect. You know what I think about? My business partner and I, Jessica, we like to use analogies for things. And so as you were talking, you were making me think about an analogy we say about how you have to have all the pieces of a cake, right, to make the cake. So you see the beautiful cake, right? But if you leave out that one extra egg, or you don't put the pinch of salt in, or the vanilla, it just doesn't turn out to that. So it might seem like when you're making a little cake, how could this one little egg affect it? But it does when you taste it. So it's all those little tiny things you're talking about that make that big, overwhelming cake at the end.
I'm getting hungry.
We like to do fun analogies like that. So, okay, so Deborah is asking, she said, can you give us some examples of artists, Erica, that you have worked with and how they have achieved their goals and visions?
Wow, that just popped up.
We're trying new things all the time here.
Okay.
We're pushing buttons and see what happens.
Okay. So I can, so I'm going to actually just use that example of the artist who, okay. I'm going to use this example of the artist who decided that she didn't want to go the route of showing in galleries and things like that. And she decided to, and she thought, okay, I want to, with my work, well, first she started with this idea. Okay, backtrack. Thinking about the artist that the example I gave earlier of the artist who was waking up in her studio, her home studio, and owned her own home, owned her own studio, and we talked about how much money she needed to make. And so when we started doing that, she thought about what she actually sells. So she sells art, ceramic pieces, and also pottery, smaller items. When she started thinking about that, she realized that she didn't really want to work selling her art to galleries, that she'd rather sell, that she wanted to continue making that work. She didn't want to have to sell it. She wanted to be able to show it and not have to sell it. She realized that she could sell the pottery, and she even did the breakdown of how many pieces she had to sell a week to make her goal income. So that would be an example of someone who was looking at kind of the big picture of her own work. And so that's what I'm going to say to you, is look at what you are making and how you want to present it to other people, and think about going backwards and what you would need in order to reach that goal. I don't know if that's clear.
Oh, it's perfect.
Okay.
One of the things I really liked is, and I mentioned this a little bit before, but you really break everything down into, I feel, as digestible parts to make sense of it all, because it's really easy as an artist to think, I just create and some people will find me, so speaking upon that, I would really like to know how important it is to follow all those steps and how it can lead to a better outcome. If we're skipping a step or maybe not taking too long to envision what we're supposed to do in our life, how does that yield you a better result over time?
I feel like all this stuff is a practice.
Okay.
So all this stuff is a practice. So you may you revisit your vision, say a year from now, revisit it even 6 months from now. And that can help you set your goals for the year. I mean, things, you change what you want. So I don't know about skipping. I don't know what you mean by skipping steps. What do you mean by that?
Well, you have an example of breaking down, having your vision and making that very clear. Let's just say I skip over that part, and I say, I skip that part, therein lies part of the problem if we're not really thinking about this in a very well-rounded manner. And I was just thinking about that right. Even all of us do that sometimes. Even if you go into a new project, you're thinking about a new direction for your arts career, you might not even have those steps in place, and how much that can really help you over time, and maybe even answer some of the things you figure out down the road you could figure out right now for yourself.
Yeah. So I think people always skip to action. Okay. People always do that. They don't spend enough time with the imagining and the visioning, or thinking about even like, what am I thinking? People always, especially when people are struggling, and you can catch it in yourself. I catch it in myself too. Like I'll be like, okay, what should I do? And I'll write down all the options that I can do, but that's actually the wrong. I think that can make you suffer more and make you waste time and energy. And instead, I would say, so what am I thinking right now? What is leading me to be struggling? What am I struggling with? And so I think by doing things like that, working on your mind, basically working on your brain, you can skip a lot of hardship, a lot of struggle, a lot of conflict. And so people always skip to that middle part, that bridging the gap between where I am and where I want to go, because, and again, people don't know where they want to go. They just think that they want to go where that person went. Sometimes, by looking at somebody else's career and saying, that's what I want, instead of thinking, what's really important to me. And it's not going to be, everybody's unique. It's not going to be that what's important to that person is important to you. And people create their careers to fit their lives.
Do you think that it's okay to not necessarily know the destination that you're going to end up at, and to have sort of an open mind as to when you get there?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, I think all along you want to have an open mind, because the truth is it's not going to necessarily look like what you envisioned. That you have to be prepared for. So you may get the recognition, you may get so in looking at your vision, you ask yourself, what is this giving me? It's giving me a sense of stability. It's giving me a sense of calm. So, but we don't really think like that. We think about what we want, right? We think about the things that we want. So, what your success may not look like what you envisioned. And it also may take more time than you think, but you've got to be patient with yourself, because you can't control the outcome, right? You really can't control the outcome. You can only control what you do, but this gives you a direction. It gives you a path, which is different from not having a path and just sort of muddling through and, just doing whatever because that looks like the shiny new thing that you should be doing.
I just noticed here that Anna is asking, Erica, would you please talk about the benefits of journaling?
Hi, Anna. Hi, Anna Maria. I think journaling is amazing. Anything that you can do to get your thoughts down. And I think this is, in terms of visioning, I mean, this is an exercise of just putting your thoughts down on paper. Because once your thoughts are on paper, you can see it and it's not clogging up your brain. I mean, I think writing down, I'll often do exercises of the kind of thought exercises that I kind of alluded to. But if I'm having trouble with something, so say I'm having trouble with marketing. I don't know what, if I should post 3 times a week or 4 times a week. Okay. I don't know if what should I be working on my website, or should I be working on, I don't know what to do. So I'll write down all my thoughts around that and get very specific. And I think if anything is a takeaway here, it's just getting really specific. And so if you can get all these things down on paper and look at them, then you can start to examine them. You can start to examine the contents of your brain and say, well, it's not a question of whether I should be on Instagram or working on my website. Maybe that's not really the question that's important. The question would be, who's my audience? Maybe that's the question to ask you. Who's my audience and how are they going to find me? Maybe that's the question, rather than should I be doing this or that?
Perfect. I wonder, out of curiosity, as a career coach, has there been one thing that you have seen that is very similar amongst artists that you would say, man, if they could just maybe reflect on this or think about this, it probably would really help and benefit them?
There are a lot of things. And I think one is that kind of going around in circles with the self-doubt, and not knowing what to do. Should I do this? Should I do that? And I would just say this is just decide on one thing. And I honestly think that you cannot go wrong. The thing, and that would be the thing, is not being able to make a decision one way or the other. Once you make a decision to do something, then you're on that path. You just decide to do something, and then opportunities open up just because you've decided to do that. You close off other things. And I think that's what people might be afraid of, is closing off that other option. But once you close something off and you decide to do the one thing, then you can just go.
That makes sense. And, are there, especially right now, are there things that you're doing to stay empowered, to stay ahead of your game as a career coach and as an artist yourself, that you would think would be really useful for everyone listening?
Well, I get coaching. I mean, honestly,
Wow.
I think everybody needs a coach. And I'm up-leveling my coaching all the time, and I'm doing that by getting coaching myself. And I'm such a believer in coaching that I have like a couple of coaches, really, because I feel like there's nothing like having someone, first of all, have your back and challenge you and show you the contents of your brain, because a lot of times, you go around in your brain and your friends and your family might not be the people to talk to about those things. So that is the number one thing that I do, is get coaching.
What you made me think of when you were saying that is, and this is probably hard for a lot of people, myself included, that you're willing to take other people's opinions and challenge yourself and modify yourself, because I'm sure not every mentor or coach is going to necessarily agree with everything you're saying, or they might have advice, or they might tell you, maybe consider this. And so how important is that for everyone also as a creative person to say, let me take advice from someone else and maybe change what I've been doing and actually be okay with that?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times it's this, and I mean, there are so many things that I see common with people, is that you think that, especially being an artist, because it's about yourself and your self-expression, and a lot of times it's about your independence. And so and nobody wants to admit that they want help. Okay. Yeah. Nobody wants to say, hey, I need help. But you know what, I'm cool with it now. I mean, I'm like, help me, right? And I think everybody needs help. And I don't care how perfect you are. I mean, just think about athletes who are at the top of their game. They have coaches. Business executives have coaches. And and so I don't really see a reason why artists shouldn't have coaches either. And it's not just, for me, it's not just, try this, or, I mean, we'll call people out on making excuses, because that's something we all do. We all make excuses. I get called out on making excuses. And honestly, like, me getting coached has taught me so much about myself that it's helped me just get over myself in a lot of ways so I can help other people.
I like that. We all have to get over ourselves to help other people. Isn't that the truth?
That's it.
We popped up a question here. So Fabio is asking, are you familiar with mind mapping to visually organize information to reach a goal?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think all these tools are great. I'm not ever going to say you should use this tool or use this, you have to use this tool. You use what works for you. I mean, you work with a coach who resonates with you. You work with tool or an app that works for you. There's no one way. And that's another thing I want to stress, is that you've got to find what feels good to you and feels right to you.
That's so true.
So yes, do mind mapping if that works for you.
And one other thing I was just thinking about, I kind of asked it a little bit in a way before about the thing that you see often with artists, but what is the one thing you really want to drive home to everyone listening as something that is really important moving on in the future in our economic climate and everything that we're in here today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say this. Somebody, not just somebody, people want your art. People need your art, and people need art right now. And to think, oh, well, there's coronavirus, nobody has money, that is just not the case. Okay, no, that's just not the case. Whatever you have, I think there are 1,000 people out there who want it. That's how I operate. That's how I operate. There are 1,000 people out there who absolutely must see your work. It's just up to you to find them. So if you look at it that way, are you not going to do everything you can to find those people and to market them? And so what if the people who don't want to hear from you leave you? What if I don't care about if people unsubscribe from me or don't follow me, because maybe that's great, because that means that they just don't want what you have. But when you're clear about what you're offering and you believe that there are people who really want to see and need to see your work, then you speak to them. And that's how I think about marketing, is that you're speaking to the people who really want you, who really want your work. You're not trying to convince the haters.
That's wonderful. I really love that. It makes me think about, and correct me if I'm wrong when I'm saying this, but would you agree that this is also, particularly what you're saying is also just finding a niche audience that is who you're selling to? For example, we can't sell to the world. Not every person is your consumer. Yeah. So finding the people that want and need you will take trial and error sometimes. Is that kind of what you're saying here?
Totally. Yeah, totally. It may take trial and error. You may also, I see too, people switching what they do, and they're afraid to switch because they're afraid they're going to lose their customers. But if your heart is telling you that you want to make films instead of doing photographs, I would say do the films. Don't worry about the photography. Do what you feel compelled to do, and you are going to be able to, if you feel compelled about what you're doing, you're going to be able to market it so much better than the thing that you don't really want to do. And so, I really believe in doing things from the heart, and marketing from the heart, and finding your people in that way.
And it makes me think too, when you say that, because aren't we going to always produce a better product when it's something we love versus something we're really not happy doing?
Of course.
Let's think about assignments or things, you're not going to put your heart and soul into it unless it's, something you really love and enjoy, and that's what it makes me think of when you say that.
Yeah. So, always do what you love, because don't do something because, you think it's going to make, that you can make money doing it if you don't love doing it, because you're not going to be able to put it out there in a way that you feel really good about. And so do the things that you love and do them well, and know that there are people out there who want it, who need to see your work, who want it, and who are going to, and not just need to see it, but who are going to pay for it. Okay. That is sometimes a mental hurdle that we have to get over, is that they don't just want to see it and appreciate it. They want to pay for it, and they will pay for it. And I have examples of artists who sell things to people who you think that, the people who buy things maybe don't have a lot of money, but maybe they don't have a lot of money, but they're going to find a way to pay for this thing. They're asking for installment plans, all kinds of things, because they love the work so much and they really want to have it. And so I don't believe that, the economy may be bad. Yes. People are hurting. Yes. But there are people who, if they love what you're doing, are going to find a way to pay for it.
That's beautiful. Well, I thank you, Erica, for sharing all your insights and for everybody commenting and asking so many wonderful questions. And I think it actually made it feel like we were interacting with a lot of people and not being able to see their faces, but it's really nice having everyone comment and sharing.
That was awesome.
Thank you. And I want to switch over really quickly and make sure to, Erica, what is your Instagram that people can follow you so that everybody knows?
My Instagram is Empowered Artist Coach.
Perfect. So there you can find valuable resources and find things that she was talking about so that you can continue on your own efforts. So thank you so much, Erica.
So much. Yeah, send me an email, sign up to get my newsletters. And if you sign up to get my newsletters, you'll find out about more trainings, free stuff, and whatever. You'll get the contents of my brain.
That's perfect. That's just what we need. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being so interactive. This made it so fun for everybody because now, since we can't see your beautiful faces, we can read your beautiful comments. And that's part of all of this. Is we are a community of creative and artists here, and we want you to know that we are all going through the challenges. Each of the speakers had their own viewpoint, but I think the common thread is that if we all stick together and challenge one another, we will definitely be better. So I want to make sure to let you know, this is not the last session. There's going to be more. We are going to have another session right here in 2 weeks. And that is going to be on branding and marketing. And it is also going to be held from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that is June 27th. So mark your calendars. So there's some things you can do also. You can register in advance at broward.org/arts, and you'll be able to get resources there. And if not, you'll be able to hop on like you did today and be able to jump onto the live streams as well. I also want to make sure to mention, if you're following either on YouTube or on Facebook, to follow Broward Arts. And so you can continue to see different things that they're doing nonstop with grants. And also, if you're there as well, before you leave Facebook or YouTube, you can check out Art Hive Magazine as well, which is where I'm from and moderating. And we really hope you guys enjoyed today's session. Once again, make sure to mark your calendars for the next one because we will be back here again on June 27th for branding and marketing from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful and creative day.